Number 10. Marge is twice as old as Consuelo. The sum of their ages 7 years ago was 13. How old are they now? I wanted to do this problem with you because the wording over here is just a hair different than what some of the other problems have shown you. So we'll talk about that in a minute. You know, first what we need to do is we need to decide which person is going to be our X. And because we have as old as right here, we know that Consuelo is going to be the younger person and she is going to be the X. And our sentence tells us that Marge is twice as old as Consuelo. Twice indicates multiplying by 2. So I'm going to take my coefficient of 2 and place it with my X. So Marge is 2X and Consuelo is X. Coming over to the bolded words now. The sum of their ages 7 years ago. So I'm going to stop right here and ignore that 13. This would be the same as saying 7 years ago, the sum of their ages. So what they did was they just rearranged the phrase and they put the sum of their ages first instead of 7 years ago. But we still just want to focus on the 7 years ago part first. So whether you rewrite it or not, this is what we're going to focus on, and this part in our graphic organizer. So we have Marge and Consuelo. Not a very good line. That's why we use erasers in math and pencils. So we decided here that Consuelo is X and Marge is twice X. So Marge is 2X and Consuelo is X. And the important words, 7 years ago. So this is going in the past. This is indicating to us subtraction. So we are going to go backwards in time, and we're going to take the age that they are now and subtract 7. Then we can look at the rest of our problem and see what it says. The sum of their ages 7 years ago was 13. So sum again tells me that I'm going to be adding, and when I add, I should get a total of 13. When I add this expression to this expression, I want to set it equal to 13. So I'm going to be focusing on what is in this column for the time being right now, because the 13 is associated with something that occurred 7 years ago. So that's why I'm focusing on this column and not this column and setting it equal to 13. That's also why I write the 13 under this column, to remind me of that. Setting this up algebraically, 2x minus 7 plus x minus 7 equals 13. combine like terms. I have 3 x's, and then I have 2 negative 7's. When kids are first starting out in algebra, I encourage them to change all subtraction problems into addition. And when we do that, when we change this sign to an addition sign, that means we have to change the sign of whatever is following it to its opposite. So I am going to change these to addition signs and make these negative 7's. As you move along, or perhaps right now, but as you move along in algebra, you will just begin to read that as 2x and a negative 7 and an x and another negative 7. But beginning out, sometimes it's a good idea to change that plus and make that, change that subtraction into a plus and make the next number its opposite. It's not always going to be a negative. So now I can combine, I can add these like terms. These are 2 negatives. When the signs are the same when I'm adding, I take the sign of my add-ins. So that's going to be plus negative 14 is equal to, oh, I wrote 14 instead of 13. So that's equal to 13. Now my x's are on this side. I have no x's over here, so I want to have all numbers over on the right-hand side. So to do that, I'm going to add 14 to each side, which will give me 3 x's on the left. These sum to 0. And on the left-hand side, we have 27. Because this is a multiplication problem, 3 times x, I'm going to use the inverse operation and divide both sides by 3. And I'm going to get that x is equal to 9. So when I look back up here, now the ages would be 9 and 18. So Consuelo would be 9 and Marge would be 2 times 9, which would be 18 years. Now, looking over here at 7 years ago, let's see when I subtract 7 from Consuelo's age, I would get 2. And when I subtract 7 from Marge's age, I would get 11. And it's telling me up here that when I add those two quantities 7 years ago, when I add those ages 7 years ago, I should get 13. And when I look down here, 2 plus 11 does give me 13. So it looks like my answers are correct. You can use this strategy for the problems on the sheet, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, and 13.